welcome everyone to Learn Your Story. My name is David Needham, I'm your presenter today. I am on the board of the Champaign County History Museum, and I also started a company called Storytech Media. Both happen to do a lot with history and family history and community history. So that's a little bit of what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking through some of the ways that you can research history in a variety of formats using a variety of tools, and then some of the resources that you can take with you after today for whatever projects you may have. We're going to start by talking through kind of building out your tool belt as a historian, because whether you knew it or not before today, you are a historian. You have within your power the ability to research history, to document it and preserve it for future generations. And that is something that you can do. It's kind of easier today than it's been in the past. So that is something that I want to empower all of you with today. You are historians. Once we take a look at some of the tools that you can use to research history, we're going to show a live demo, a scary live demo, because it never quite goes the way you expect. But we're going to take a look at the history of one of our local entrepreneurs, local famous person. So we'll get to that. And then we're going to take a look at what some local professionals do to preserve history, to take all the research they've done and to share it with other people so that they can kind of keep that history alive and keep it going. All of my slides are available to download at the end, so feel free to take pictures if you want or take notes, but everything that you see on the screen will be available to you at the end. You can download them, you can share them, whatever you want, and then we are also recording. Thank you to the Champaign Public Library for recording this talk. It will show up on their YouTube page, so you can watch it later, you can share it with other people. All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in. So as I said, you are a historian. Let's take a look at some of the tools that you might have in your tool belt. And I do want to reiterate that it's not something that you have to have a PhD for. A lot of these tools are pretty accessible and easy for people to get access to for free. All the tools we're talking about today are completely for free, so you don't have to buy a subscription or anything like that. And then also, I want to reiterate that you shouldn't try to do it all at once. In case you are concerned about that, an individual's history, an individual artifact, an individual, a family takes a lot of time. As you go, you're going to find that there's rabbit trails, there's different avenues that you can go, there's new discoveries that you're going to want to explore. This is not something you're going to be able to do in a single sit down, in a single day, in a single month, year. Some of you may know already if you've done research like this before. You're assembling pieces of a puzzle. You're discovering one new clue that kind of paints the picture that you didn't understand before. And that's going to lead to more things that you want to search for, more people you want to investigate. And so it's not something that you should feel like, oh, I'm going to get it all done right now and I'll be complete. No, it's going to take some time. So first of all, let's take a look at the family history and lineage. So for part of this, we're going to be looking at genealogy. So it's going to be the study of the family history, kind of one generation to the next. We're going to be taking a look for the live demo at Ancestry, which is a website where you can research family history and the vital documents like census records and different things like that. And then the library, both the Champaign Public Library and the Urbana Free Library, both have the library edition of Ancestry completely for free. The catch is you have to access it on the Wi-Fi here or on the computers here. You have to be on the network of the library in order to get access to Ancestry Library Edition. But the tools, the information that gives you is incredible. It is well worth coming to the library like you did today. You can also get help. Both the Urbana Free Library and the Champaign Public Library are more than happy to schedule time with you to help you use Ancestry and the other resources that are available through the library system to help research your history, your neighborhood, your house, family, artifacts, all those things. All you have to do is book time with them. And that's something you can do here at the desk up there. The little welcome desk, you can book time with a librarian to sit with you and walk through any of these tools. And then also there's other tools beyond these. Of course, there's probably limitless tools. There's thousands and thousands of different things you can choose. Just to list another one, Find a Grave is a website that has been pretty helpful. It's an initiative based around taking pictures of gravestones and then trying to tie them to people and make that connection. So Ancestry has great information. Sometimes Find a Grave can have a little bit more context or a little bit, of a different angle that might be helpful as you're exploring these things. Another avenue is looking at the local Champaign-Urbana archives. So certainly the Champaign County Historical Archives and the Genealogical Society at the Urbana Free Library are frankly incredible resources that you should take advantage of. It lets you paint a really unique picture and really detailed, in-depth picture of history, whether it's, again, an individual or an artifact or kind of the events that happened. That's another place that you can go. So you can go during business hours. The Genealogical Society and the Historical Archives are both open and available. So you can go there during business hours. There's someone available to talk with you, and you can have access to their databases and the documents and all those things that they log there. And then last but not least, the thing that my company does, Storytech Media, is we work with a lot of families to record family history and to digitize old pictures and old VHS tapes and 8mm tapes. And we do a lot of interviews and try to create family documentaries to save family history. So, if you have people, I mentioned at the beginning that you are historians. Don't take for granted the fact that there are people in your life today that people down the road want to know about, right? As you're searching for family history right now, you might wish, I wish I knew a little bit more about this person 1 or 2 generations back. Well, there are people 1 or 2 generations in front of you that are thinking the same thing, and you might have access to share the information that they're looking for. So if you can capture oral history, if you are around family for Thanksgiving or family reunions are awesome for this. Christmas, family birthdays, anniversaries, things like that. Anytime that you can ask people questions, ask them to share that story that they share at every other family gathering already, but ask them if you can just hit record on your phone to record their audio or do a little video clip. Having that story and that history saved and preserved is significant and important. I think that it makes a big difference, and I think it's something that future generations will cherish. So, as you think about what sort of family events might be happening in the future that you might want to record or have some interview times with, I've seen people do story booths where they have a family gathering, they might have a booth sort of pre-set up on the side with a camera and a tripod, or a phone even on a little tripod or something like that. And it's just, you might have a story prompt in front of them, like cards where you can ask questions, or if it's at a family's anniversary party, a 50th anniversary, maybe it's stories about the couple, stories that you remember. What's your earliest memory of this person? Or, what is your earliest, how did they first meet? How did, all these different things that you could ask about the person or the people or whatnot. Try to capture them by having the space set up for them. And then having just a list of questions can be a little bit sterile or boring, or it can feel a little bit tough to get people excited or to really open up when you're interviewing them. So anytime that you can include pictures or artifacts or other things that would help them remember the memory that you're trying to capture, or the people that you're trying to help them remember, that helps. That makes a significant difference. So having something like a scrapbook that they can flip through as you're asking for stories or asking questions, that can really help them open up and can make the stories that are being told just a little bit more impactful and emotional and really interesting. So in addition to an individual family's genealogy and an individual's history, well, in this world, we take up physical space, right? We live in a house, we've worked in various buildings throughout the years. So what if we researched our house history? How many people here have researched the history of their house before? All right, so I see one person who has done this. We'll be talking, when I get to the professional, like what professionals do section. One of the local librarians here, Kat Purcell, actually has a side business where she researches house history and creates these incredible reports sharing the history of a house. She actually, I'll get to this later, but she also has a great Tuesday at 10 talk that she gave all about this, which was recorded, and you can watch that later. She'll go into a lot more detail than I'm able to get into. But what if we wanted to look at the history of our house? What if we wanted to know who lived there through the years? What changes were made to our house through the years? And what impact did that have as we maybe moved from one house to another, or from one town to the other? What does that say about the development of the family, or their job, their economic status, things like that? Well, if we want to take a look at the physical footprint, where people actually lived, there are a couple different options here that are just incredibly rich and interesting to look at. One is the Sanborn Fire Insurance Maps. This is an insurance company who put together these incredibly detailed and colorful maps of cities all over the country. And it shows information about the houses from that year, or from that, not quite decade, but whatever interval that they create the maps in. You can look at one map and then go to the next map, and you'll see how things changed. You can see what material the house is made out of. It will even tell you things like, where were the windows on the house, and what sort of city-wide plumbing infrastructure existed. It's just really, really fascinating information on that map. And then that is something you can access. I think it's through the Library of Congress that all of these maps are widely available, but within Champaign County, there is a University of Illinois database that you can search. And again, I mentioned there's a live demo later. We're going to go through all of these resources live on the screen, so I'll be able to show you.
If I can, the University Library has a set of Sanborn fire insurance maps. The library is open to anybody to use.
Thank you. The comment was that the University of Illinois has a copy, or maybe the original Sanborn insurance maps. Complete set. So you can go and view them in person, and if you'd like to.
That's right, in the main library.
In the main library. Thank you. What we're going to be looking at for these are the digital scans. So I didn't bring any Sanborn insurance maps with me today, but we'll be able to look at them together. And then there's also the Champaign County GISC that has aerial photography that goes all the way back to the 1900s, which it's really fascinating to see the growth of a community, the development of the land as it moves from farmland to suburban to a little bit more urban, and how things change over time. So we'll be taking a look at that and comparing maps that change over time. It also has some interesting information around, what district are you in? What school district are you in? All this detailed county information is also viewable in map form through that. We won't be taking a look at those overlays as much, but we'll be comparing the aerial photography to see how an area changed over time. And then extending the search just a little bit more, what about the community impact? As you start thinking about your family, what did your family actually do? What sorts of news did your family make? Was it good? Was it bad? Everyone has both. So something that you can do to look for this information. The Champaign County History Museum certainly has a variety of resources that you can access through the digital archive. You can look at artifacts. We'll frequently, I'm on the collections committee, we'll frequently have people contribute artifacts, things from their home or from their closet or attic or wherever that were from generations ago that are like scrapbooks, or we've had things like the membership book or the membership applications for these different old clubs from decades ago. And so being able to look at that information, being able to go to the Champaign County History Museum and visit the library there and look at the old yearbooks and the old, other things like that can really help you see not just who your family was, but what they did, what sorts of, what their life was like, what were some things that they interacted with or that were significant to them. them at that point. There's also the IDNC, which is the newspaper, the digital newspaper archive. So you can search the scanned archive of newspapers from Champaign County, and even beyond that, to find information, news articles, to find really fascinating things about, like, the legal notices that were made in the newspaper at the time to say that so-and-so did so-and-so thing, or the crime that was happening at that time, or the obituaries that were happening, the significant newsworthy things that you would see in the newspaper today are preserved and digitized, and also searchable because somebody took the time to make sure that all of the words in the newspaper were something that's indexed and searchable. So we will also be taking a look at that. All right, so now that we've maybe collected a bunch of information about our family or family member or things like that, how do you actually preserve that information? How do you make sure that it lives beyond you? All this work that you put into it, how do you make sure that it actually is something that people can access, that people are able to do, and that you don't lose it if something catastrophic happens, like a tornado comes through or a fire happens in your house or something like that. So first, create a paper trail. As you are collecting this information, as you're visiting these websites, as you're finding these amazing things about your family, save them, download them to your computer if you can, and document them in as much detail as you can. If you can share things like, where did I find this record? What line or what part of this document has the information I'm looking for? Who did it belong to? Who is this relevant to? What family member is this about? Where did it come from? Why does it matter? The context is important, and if you are collecting all this information, that's great. But if you're collecting all this information and then not organizing it or providing information about why it's important or the connection that this information has to the work that you're doing, then it's very easy for, I don't know about you, it's easy for me to forget about what the context is later. If I mentioned this is not something that you can do all at once. You're not going to sit down and see your whole family tree or your whole family history. It's going to take weeks, months, years. And when I go back to look at a document that I made a year ago, I might have no clue why I thought it was important enough to download. So we're going to be talking in just a second here about naming conventions. So as you are downloading these files and putting them on your computer, or as you're snapping pictures with your phone and putting that on your computer, or as you are doing whatever to get these digital files, try to use a naming convention that makes it easy to find that file later, and maybe use folders or different things like that so that you can easily get back to that document and find it if you need to later. So if you do a scan with like a flatbed scanner or something like that, it might come in with a pretty generic name like scan 001, and the next one is 002, the next one is 003. That is not useful information. So if you're able to, again, while it's fresh, while you remember exactly what this is and why it matters to you, go in and rename that file and put it into a folder structure that makes sense. So for example, doing something like the bottom there, it says Y, so it's like the year, the month, the day, followed by the name of the person that's relevant to, that this document is relevant to, followed by metadata, the description, where this came from, why it matters, where in this document to look for the name of the person that you're looking for. So just as a quick example of this, I have, in this other tab here, I've put this information for this person we're going to be researching for the live demo here in a folder on Google Drive. So within this folder, I have the naming convention right here, which is the name, or I'm sorry, the year, the month, and the day that this document was published. And then I have the name of the person, and then I have where it came from, and then I have the description about what this document is. And I apologize if this is a little bit hard to see. The font size is maybe a little too small, but we have that. And I also created a folder here for, I have a lot of documents that I downloaded from ancestrylibrary.com. So I put them all in one place. These are ones that were downloaded directly from Ancestry.com. So the naming convention kind of stayed the same there, but I put in some additional context. Like right here it says, hey, this is the original census document that I can see right here, but it's kind of hard to see any relevant data. I can zoom in pretty far, but where's the person that I'm looking for? Well, in the file name, I said page 9, line 3, so I can tell this document is page 9, and if I go down to line 3, here's the person I'm looking for. So that little bit of extra context in the name is giving me more information to go off of so that I can more easily find what I'm looking for later when I'm going back to it. Also, if you can create Google documents or Word documents or even text files, or if you still like paper and pencil, that's okay. If you can write down your notes on paper and pencil, that is totally an option. Just make sure to create a paper trail. Create a path that shows I got this document from this website in order to establish the provenance of where it came from and why it's important. Just list out as many details as you can, as you know at that point, so that it's something that you can refer back to later, and that future generations can also refer back to and see exactly where it came from. Question?
What my husband has done is taken and highlighted in yellow the part, so he doesn't have to make all those other notes.
Exactly. You can highlight in yellow. You can show exactly where in the document that is. As we take a look at the Ancestry website, it does some of that for you too. So we'll take a look at that. Unfortunately, the file that it saves does not have the information highlighted anymore. But that is something that you can do even with a digital file. You can go in and highlight the piece that is relevant, or you can add text on top of the image to say kind of relevant information about it. So excellent addition, thank you. And then backing up. So nobody wants to redo any work, right? It would really be terrible to have all this work that you put into it, days, months, years of work, that all of a sudden gets deleted because your computer crashes, or again, if there's a disaster, a fire, or a tornado, or you just lose it. That would be terrible to have all of that work lost. So the professionals use, at minimum, a 3-2-1 backup rule. The idea is that you want to keep 3 copies on 2 different media formats, and at least one needs to be stored off-site. So if you are thinking about your precious family photos, or your family videos, for example, or something like that, you want to keep 3 copies. So you could have maybe one on your computer, you could have one on like a flash drive, or something like that, and then maybe you still have the original VHS tapes or something. That would be, in that point, you're actually doing 3 different types of media. But you have 3 copies. And then the different media formats. So again, whether it's you're keeping it on a flash drive, you're keeping it on your computer, you're keeping it on the cloud, if you're uploading it to Google Photos or to Apple iPhoto or some other backup service online, that helps make sure that you have at least 3 copies, 2 different media types, and at least one is stored off-site. Whenever I perform a scanning project for a customer, I always offer a flash drive in addition to the digital files that they can download from their computer. And what I say is, if you have this flash drive, send it to a family member, send it to your kids, send it to your grandkids, whoever you think will cherish this and find it interesting. Send it to them so they have a copy. Or if you don't know, or if you don't trust anyone that you could send it to, put it in your safe deposit box. Put it someplace safe so that you always have a copy of whatever those files may be. So that applies just as well to these documents you're collecting, to these text documents you're creating, or what you're writing down on paper. Make sure that you have a copy. So if you are the sort of person that takes physical documentation of your history, if you're collecting and printing the census records and then highlighting with the marker, or if you're taking notes on a notebook, maybe just snap a picture of them with your phone so that you have another copy that's digital. So if something happens to this notebook or this folder, you have yet another copy that's in a different format that won't get destroyed if something happens or that document gets lost. All right, now we're on to the fun part, the live demonstration. We are looking good on time. I'm going to go a little bit on the faster side of this, just so that we have more time to answer questions. And if we have, we're going to have a lot of time at the end, but if we do, and if you'd like to kind of come up and talk and kind of run through any of these examples with your own history, I'm more than happy to do that. All right, so for the live demo, we're going to be taking a look at B.F. Harris, who was a someone who's important to Champaign history, who basically I went to Will. Will Best is here. He's the museum manager at the Champaign County History Museum, and I asked him, who is someone from our history, maybe related to the cattle bank, the building the History Museum is in, that I could use for the live demo. And so he said, oh, you should totally look at B.F. Harris. And he said, oh, let me know if you need any additional questions, or if you have any additional questions, or if you need more context on the family history. And I'm like, wait, I don't want any additional context. I want to see what I can figure out for myself, and then that will make a more authentic demo for this today. So what I know is that B.F. Harris, or Benjamin F. Harris, was in Champaign County. I know that he purchased the cattle bank building after it was foreclosed on. I know that he was born in or around 1811, and let's just say that's it, right? If you can figure out where someone was born, or the year they were born, or even the range of year that they were born, that gives you quite a bit to go on. So we're going to take a look at the Ancestry Library Edition, and we're going to discover some things. So let me switch to tab. So when you go to, oh actually, let me take another step back. If you go to Champaign, it's tough to do this with one hand. Champaign.org for the Champaign Public Library. From here, we can go to e-library here at the top. And from there, if we scroll down, we can find Ancestry Library Edition. And that will get you over to the free version of Ancestry.com that, you can only access this if you are on the network at the library. So you don't have to log in, you don't have to sign up, you don't have to pay anything, it's all included. So if we type in the information we know, Benjamin F. Harris, places lived, we knew that he lived in Champaign. You do Champaign, Illinois, it's like city, county, Illinois. One of the things you'll find as you're going through this is that people went by many different names on different documents. There's also different spellings, there's also sometimes names change and it's not really documented anywhere, and so that's worth noting. And then also things like this, where, do I pick Champaign County, or do I pick Champaign, Illinois, or do I pick something else? Well, start with one, do the research, see what it will tell you, and then do the other one. And sometimes you'll get even more information or a different angle on what was said. So I'm going to start with this one, and I'm going to say not 20, but 1811. If you know additional information like father, mother, or the place that he was born, or the year that he died, or anything like that, you can give that information. And then also, if you don't know exactly what year it is, you can use this estimator, where you can say, oh, he was about 40 on whatever year. Then it will create a range and estimate that for you within the search. So it'll help you kind of get in there. There are checkboxes here for exact. If you know, like, this is his exact name and it didn't change, well, I knew that sometimes he goes by B.F. Harris or Benjamin Harris or other things like that. So I'm not too concerned about that being exact, but I do want the last name to be exact. I'll click on search. Okay, so immediately we have this, there's a lot of records that you're going to have to sort through. There's going to be a lot of clicking and going back and clicking and going back, and then when you find that breakthrough, that's when we're going to start downloading and saving the records that we have. So, right here we have Illinois U.S. wills and probate records from between 1772 to 1999. That's quite the range. If I look at the information down here, I can see the record in this document reference is Benjamin F. Harris. He was born about 1812 and died, it says here, in 1903. So if I was researching somebody that I didn't have that much information about, I would probably have a notepad next to me, or I'd have another document open, and I would write this down as, oh, maybe he died in 1903, or maybe it was wrong about 1911, maybe it's actually 1812, and I would write that down. And that extra bit of context, as we go and we start to look at other documents, it starts to paint the wider pictures. This is what I was saying about getting the puzzle pieces. You start to see, oh, I actually didn't know that, but since in another document he mentioned that his wife's name was Mary, then that means that that's the same Mary that is referenced over in this news article later. And any of those details you can write down will help you paint the bigger picture later. So if I take a look at this, if I click on this wills and probate record, I can see additional information here. I can see that he died in 91. Again, there's additional information about when he died exactly, on the exact date. I can see he died in Champaign, and if I just click on this, the picture over here, we can zoom in on this document. So it looks like this is for Jacob Reynolds. Here we go, estate of Benjamin F. Harris, deceased. And so this is the deed. This is the will for Benjamin F. Harris when he died. This is the one that was executed. And so you can read through and see all of his kids, all of his family members, all of his business associates that were mentioned in his will and that received property and money and resources and other things like that. So all of that is mentioned here, which just has a wealth of information about his life when he died, what he had, what he was able to give to other people. And in this case, it actually goes on for multiple pages. He was pretty prolific in Champaign County, so he has multiple pages of different items and people that he's giving things to. So all the way here. So you can see the witnesses that were involved, which may or may not have any significance in this case, and then who the clerk was who signed that up. So in this case, I would probably download this. This is significant. So within the Ancestry.com, there's this little wrench icon, and I apologize if it's really tough to see. I don't think I can make that any bigger. But within the wrench icon, starting at the bottom actually, there's a section for settings, where you can change some settings, which when we start to look at the census records, we'll see that that's what will highlight some of the information that's there. This document doesn't have that information, but we'll get to that in a minute. And then we have the option up here to print or to download. So if I choose download, it is going to download this document. So if I open my downloads and I take a look, it is going to be an image of just this one page. So if I have, in this case, this is a will, it's multiple pages long, I'm going to have to go back and I have to download each page individually, and then that will give me all the information that I need about this. And then notice the naming convention for this. This is not a helpful naming convention. 0046619112 doesn't mean anything to me. So I would make a point to put this in a folder for Benjamin F. Harris Sr. I would then add the year that this document was filed, that this was relevant to. I would put in his name, and then I'd put in where it came from, like ancestrylibrary.com. And then I'd put in any additional information that's relevant, so like will, or something like that. So that is important to keep track of your documents. There's also the other option up here to print. You can print it as a print, like you would normally expect a print to be from your printer. But on a lot of computers, on Mac and then on Windows too, there's a way to save as a PDF, which a PDF is just another digital file that is frequently something you can search the text of. It's something that's easy to send to other people. So that is pretty helpful to do. And then if you go to print, one of the things that I think is really cool is there's this option here to also print source data. And if you do that, and I'm going to go ahead and say continue and let it do that. So again, I'm on a Mac computer, so it may not look exactly the same for you, but I have the option to save as PDF, and again, I know you can do that on Windows too, I just don't have that on the screen. I'm going to save it to my desktop, sure, as a PDF, and if I go to my desktop and I take a look at that file, so it's all there. The resolution isn't quite as good as the original, so I can zoom in, but it's not going to be quite as rich, or it's going to lose some of the crispness to that. But I can see at the top here the date and time that I printed it, that I downloaded the PDF. I can see exactly what the file name is, where it came from. And then on the second page, this is the detail. It tells you the important information about where this document came from, which again is your paper trail. This is you saving for future generations where this particular document originated from and maybe even why it's important. So you can find the source and where you can find it later if you needed to. So that's interesting, but let's take a look at a different record. So let's go back. And let's take a look at a census record. So here is the census. Ooh, that was a little interesting. So it's from June 1880. Benjamin F. Harris, he was in Mahomet, according to this one at the time, and agriculture. So if we click on it, it's kind of tough to see. If I zoom in, this one might not have context. It looks pretty tough to see, actually. This is something you'll find as you go through and perform research and search on websites and things like that, is that sometimes something you search for may not look the same, or like not like the physical picture has changed, but this isn't a document that I saw the last time I looked in there, and it wasn't that I was trying to find it, but it might just, it wasn't the one that I clicked on. So let me find, how about this? A little bit easier to see. So this is, it doesn't say Mahomet, but after doing a little bit of research on where Township 19 North, Range 7 East, Champaign is, this is Mahomet. And after doing a little bit of research on his farm and his history and everything that took place during that time, you discover that he was pretty famous back in this time as a rancher, as a cattle driver. And so, so that's why it says agriculture at this point. Let me see if I can find, I might need to go to, I don't know why my mouse pointer keeps disappearing when I try to go over the document. Again, this is the fun stuff that happens when you do a live demo that will hopefully never happen to you on your own computer. Yeah, I can't even put my mouse over on that section anymore. Okay, well, you'll have to take my word for it, and I apologize for this, but when you view documents like this, where it kind of looks like a spreadsheet, like the census records, for example, if it doesn't do it for you automatically, then there's a setting over here that I can't seem to access anymore that will let you view a table on top of the document. So as you hover over the different fields here, it will tell you the number that's written in there, or the name that's written in there, and it will tell you the column headings and things like that. So it becomes really easy. Maybe we'll just try one more document, but it'll become really easy as you're hovering over to find the person you're looking for. And even though it's really tough to read, the scanner or the document or the person who interpreted did a really excellent job of interpreting it as the correct fields. Let me give one more try before moving on. CV directory. So this is a case where maybe Benjamin F. Harris maybe isn't quite the same record that I looked for earlier. Maybe I just searched for Benjamin Harris. And again, this is an example of what you might need to do if you're not quite finding the right thing. Try searching for something slightly different, and you might find something a little bit different. Here we go. So we can find a marriage index. You can see that he married Elizabeth Sage in 1841. Let's take a look at that and see. Oh, and actually, so this is one, if you see there's no image here, this is just a database record. It's not referring to a document that we're able to look at. It's just part of the, let's see, the Illinois-U.S. marriage index between 1860 and 1920. So it is just a database that we have access to. It's not a document that we can actually see. But I bet what I did different last time was instead of searching for Champaign County, I bet I searched for Champaign. This first one here. Okay. Yeah, sure. Let's look at the 1900 United States Census. So this is B. Franklin Harris Sr. So by this point, he had a son. He named Benjamin Franklin Harris Jr. Also Franklin. If we didn't know that his middle name is Franklin, if we've only ever seen Benjamin F., then now we have that information, which we write down in our paper, kind of painting the picture of this person. And you can see this does highlight the record. And as I scroll, we can see it's highlighting at the top here. All the information is written in on the digital file, so we can see this is the birth year field. And as we scroll down, we can see, oh, look, birth year 1811. And at this point, he was 88, male, years married, 34. Oh, I can see he was born in Virginia. So again, census records just provide a wealth of information as you're starting to investigate individuals and then family connections between people. So you can, father's birthplace, mother's birthplace, occupation at the time. He was a banker by this point in the 1900. You can see that he can read and write and speak English. We can see that he owned property in full. It wasn't mortgaged for his house. And it was a house, it was not a farm at this point. And over on the side, you can see that his address was 303 Elm Street. Oh, 303 Elm Street. So this is a great transition into, now that we know where he lived at that point, what if we look that up? So one of the places you can start is just going to maps. What if we type in 303 Elm Street? Champaign, and it's actually, it doesn't say if it's south or north, so it's suggesting south. Let's take a look at that first. And you can see there's a house here. So this is the house today, or at least relatively close to today. But curious, doing a little bit of research and kind of digging into this, I found out that he is actually not at 303 South Elm Street, but 303 North Elm Street. But this is a little bit of a hiccup that I'm smoothing over for the sake of the demo. You would have to go through this a little bit on your own, but in order to keep things timely, I'm going to go to 303 North Elm Street, Champaign. And we're going to discover something. So 303 North Elm Street doesn't exist in Champaign. And part of the reason for this is because, well, if you take a look at the map satellite view right now, that is currently in the space or on the intersection of where the Central High School football field is. And if you think back how that position in Champaign has changed over time, it was the YMCA before that, and it was a mansion before that. It was a mansion before that. Oh, hey, how about that? Well, what if we didn't know that already? If we're investigating this space, how can we get information about what this space used to be before it was a football field? Well, let's go to one of our other resources. Let's go to the CCGISC, the Champaign County GIS Consortium. So from this website, which again I have links to in the slides, you'll be able to get to this yourself. You can get information about Champaign County aerial maps and county lines and all that stuff for different districts. So if I go to here and I go down to interactive, this one, the interactive public map. Well, it says from mobile devices, but I don't think that matters. If we click on that, accept. So right now we can see this is Champaign County. If we zoom in, won't be too far. looking for West Side Park. There is it right there. This is the property that we were thinking was the one that he had property at. If I go to, yeah, so you can see from here there's a variety of imagery that you can pull from. So if we go all the way back to 1973, we can see that there was a mansion there at that point. I'm actually going to go back. I don't think it was the mobile version. Here we go. So Champaign County interactive map. Slightly different. We have to accept the terms in order to view the map. And it gives you this sidebar here where you can a little bit more easily slide and compare the different regions within the map. So if I kind of highlight the area that we're looking for, there is the option to search, but again, because this address doesn't exist anymore, it will tell you that there's no results for 303 Elm. So we can see it right here, John P. White edition. So if we look at the current, close to current 2023 aerial map, we can see that it's currently the football field. And it's tough to get the right size on my little computer screen, but that's okay. As I go through, I can actually, I find this to be really fun. If I select all the maps, and then I can reveal them one at a time as I go through history, which is a fun thing. So if I go back to 2020, at that point it was under construction. It was no longer, it was in transition from the building it was before into the football field. If I go back to 2017, I see that it was still there. And then if I go a little bit more rapidly through the years, I can see when things changed. So now we're back to 1988. The parking lot isn't there at that point. If I go back to 1973, looks like there's something else there, maybe a field. I'm not sure, maybe a garden of some sort. And then there was also this garage or stable or something like that. Going back to 1940, this one is the least amount of detail, but the fact that there's an aerial map from 1940, I think is frankly pretty cool. And you can see a decent amount of detail, and if you zoom out, you can see even more. So this is just fun to play with. So as you're trying to learn more about the home that you researched and its place within Champaign County, you can find that information all from this map and flip back and forth and see how things changed over time. All right, another thing that is really fun to look at and provides a rich amount of information is the Sanborn Fire Insurance Maps. So if we, again, this is a link that you can get to from my slides, which I'll put in there, or you can just search for it. If we view the documents and we go in and look specifically for Champaign, so this is going to show us information about Champaign. So going all the way back to 1887, we can see what Champaign was like at that point. At least the most downtown areas. It doesn't cover the entire space. Oh man, my mouse cursor is disappearing again. Ooh. I can't actually see what I'm clicking on, which is making this really tough. So if we take a look at first of all, the overall map, we can see information here about, I'm trying to make it full screen for you because you can see a lot more information. There we go. All right, so if we take a look at the map itself, it gives important information about like where it came from and interesting information like what the water facilities were like in Champaign back in the 1800s and what the fire department had at this point. Well, it had a volunteer fire department with 4 independent hose carts, 3 hand and 1 horse, 1 steam engine, 1 hand engine, 1 hook and ladder truck, and 2,000 feet of good hose. And then there's information about the streets and things like that. There's information about some special buildings that were there. And then there's also, maybe I'll look at a different document where it shows, let me see. Key, yeah, the key right here. So What it's telling you here, there's a lot of information that they're getting across in a small amount of document, but in the interest of time, you can see that buildings colored in yellow are frame, so like wood frame. The ones in red are brick, blue is stone, and that's about all that we have in Champaign. We don't have much iron or adobe or unusually special things like that. Oh, there's a green one there. So we can get that information. If we look at the map, we can see that if we're looking for that area, it's actually off the map. So Elm Street is right here. The building we're looking for is in this space right here, and it's not on the map. So at this point in the 1800s, the Sanborn map does not give us the information we're looking for. So if I go back, if I go down a little bit more, I can see, we go up to 1909. There's a lot more detail there. And I'm gonna have to try to make this full screen again. There we go, okay. So again, you can see how things may have changed at this point between the water facilities and the fire department over 50 or so years between that first one we looked at and this one here, which is frankly fascinating. That in and of itself could be a pretty fascinating report or article or blog or something. It's just how things changed over time by looking specifically at these maps and then researching a little bit more about the history and how that changed within it. And then if we look on here, we can see that, okay, well, here's church, and here's elm. So it might be in the corner of map number 6. So if we scroll through the maps, you can see in the upper right corner, 4, 5. This one is map number 6. And if we go over here, hill and elm, we can see just the very edge of the building. So it was there, but we don't have a whole lot of information about that property. So let's go back and make it just a little bit newer. So let's go to 1915. And struggle with my full screen. There we go. Getting a little bit better. Okay, so now if I look at this map and I scroll in, I can see that it's grown quite a bit. The map now covers quite a bit more detail within Champaign. And so here's the park off of Church and Elm. So it is within map 22. So if we go to number 22, 10, 20, 21, 22, so you can see West Side Park is right here. Fun fact, you can see the public library. It is right here off of Church. That's the original Champaign Public Library. And then right down the street here is the house that we were looking for. So this is now 505 West Church Street. But at the time, or at some point, they had the entrance off of Elm, and that's why his address was listed as Elm, but it changed over time. And you can see they had a mansion with a pergola that went across to their garage, which used to be a stable when it was first built. And yeah, and that's the Sanborn maps, which again are just fascinating to look into. All right, let me jump back to my presentation. We are definitely running out of time. Oh yeah, and this is an actual picture of him that I found through Ancestry, which is him and his family in a car, which was obviously pretty significant for that time. Oh, and we've already jumped into this a little bit too, looking at the mapping and structure. So, what about everyday life and gossip? What changed for his life? And we are a little bit late on time now, so I'm going to let you search for this yourself, unfortunately. I'm going to show you a quick search by searching for the Illinois newspaper database. If I go to the Illinois Digital Newspaper Collections, I do a quick search for E.F. Harris. You have to sort through quite a bit of stuff, and I recommend using the filters on the side to narrow it down even more to like the decade you're looking for, or the article on the newspaper publication that you're looking for. But we can see here there is his obituary, which does a great job again of highlighting specifically, where it is and highlighting the text, and then also showing you the text on the side. I have found that it's not always very well done as far as the text. If it's hard to read, the computer has a hard time translating it into legible text. So you might have to look at it yourself. And then as you're researching this history, not just focusing, you could get a screenshot or download the image of just the obituary. But I think it's pretty cool to look at the bigger picture. If you can get the entire newspaper from that time and download that, just think of the rich history, the context of this article, and the other news that was happening at that time. That is way more interesting than just that one little clip that you could have gotten. So, there's just a lot that you can find here. There's a lot of fun drama that happened with B.A. Paris. There's a lot of really exciting rags to riches style life that he had, going from being a farmer to being the founder of the First National Bank in Champaign. And it's fun to kind of paint a picture with that. So, I need to keep moving. Going back to the presentation, there's also the Champaign County History Museum Digital Archive, and I apologize to Will for not having time to go through this anymore, but you can go through, there's a bunch of photos that have been added there that people have contributed that you can view over time. There's also our digital archive that you can search through, and you can find things, for example, from the Harris family. And you can find artifacts that came from, not this mansion, unfortunately, but from one of the other mansions that his kids had. So let's take a quick look at how the pros do it as we are rushing a little bit. But I mentioned Kat Purcell, the Champaign Public Library librarian, who also does the Meet Your Old House, and you can find her website at meetyouroldhouse.com. She does a lot of what I've talked about today, and then organizes it in a super smart way, in a way that is really fascinating for house profiles. And I've seen people do things like, as they are preparing to sell their house, maybe they'll do the research on the history of their house and then include that with the person who's buying the house. Or I actually toured a house one time that had this information framed near the front door. So as we were coming into the house, we could see the history of the house, and that, as a potential house buyer, made me really interested in oh, this house has history, and it's really interesting to know what happened here, and who owned it, and what they did, and all that stuff. So she does a lot of the stuff that we did, but again, organizes it in this website and in PDFs that she provides to her customers so that you can dig in and really learn a lot about your house history. The thing I want to highlight, though, is that it is organized, right? She didn't just collect this information and give you the census records and the individual documents. She turned this into an organized collection of information, which I think is the next step. Once you've collected all this information, making sure that it is organized and potentially published on a website or contributed to Ancestry.com or some other website so that you can see how things changed over time. So for example, there's actually information here about the Harris family as one of the houses that she had researched. One of the other professionals that I'm highlighting here is the Champaign County History Museum's president, TJ Blakeman, who's also a member of the city and works with Champaign, the city as well. He has this really great website called champaignhistory.com where he does his own research and publishes information about local history. So as I was researching the Harris family, I found an article that he had written about the First National Bank building. And so in this document, he has pictures, he has maps, he has illustrations, he has all this information collected and organized and published on the website, and it made it easy for me to find. So as we are wrapping up, I just want to encourage you, it might be intimidating to start a website, but if you can organize your information, even if it's not a website, even if it's just a Word document or something like that, having it organized in a way that a family member, someone else can take a look at and understand exactly what you did and the connections that exist between these people and the buildings and the community, That is so important. That feels so impactful. And that's really taking it to the next level, beyond just researching, but also then publishing and giving back the information you're finding. Okay. I want to show you, I'm going to show you the resources, and I'm at time. Is it okay for me to go just a little bit over? Okay. So I want to show you two quick things, hopefully fairly quick things. So one is, I showed you this Google Drive folder where I organize all the information. You don't have to use Google Drive. It is something that you can get for free if you have a Google account. So if you have Gmail or anything like that, you already have a Google account, you already have Google Drive. You can upload your files into here, such as the PDFs, the images, and all the different things I've collected. And then one of the interesting things is that once you have it all collected here, you can search within this folder and hopefully find the information you're looking for. So you're kind of like building your own database, your own ancestry.com. So if I was searching for, within this folder, I know one of his wives was named Mary. If I do a search for Mary, I can see here, Mary was referenced in this folder, or in this file, I mean, if I do another search for Mary, I can see down here, inferred spouse, Mary J. Harris. So it is creating your own collection of information, then being able to search that to find what you're looking for later can be really impactful. And then the last one is using AI, which AI has many pros and cons. One of the things that it is good at is processing information and then giving you back that information in a useful way. So this is a tool, another Google product called Notebook LM. Within Notebook LM, the whole thing is that you're able to create the sources that you're providing. So instead of it just searching the entire internet and not knowing where the references are coming from or where it's inferring the information from, you can provide all the documents that I just downloaded, all the PDFs, all the census records. I can also include information about like, hey, here's an article from the Champaign County History Museum that's really important about the history of the Harris family. Let me include that too. And then I can ask it questions about the information, and it will return results based on only the references that I've made here already. So, for example, I asked, discuss what sources say about Elizabeth Sage in the larger context of spouses. And this is within Benjamin Harris's family. And it provided all this information. It provided references, so I can see, these subtext here. If I click on one, it can show me exactly where it came from and where it's kind of pulling that information in. And I do want to highlight it's not always correct. Like most AI tools, it makes guesses sometimes. And so it is always on us to verify that what it's saying is correct. If it tries to guess or make an assumption, you can tell it it's wrong. You can provide additional information to kind of get it back on track. But then the one last thing, once we have all your information, I just collected just a few things here, just a few documents and articles. On the side here is Studio, where you can create things from this information. So for example, I told it to create a podcast about the information that explains the life of Benjamin F. Harris. And so you're not going to be able to hear it super well, but if I show you
This is the brief on the life of Benjamin Franklin Harris Sr. He was a 19th century pioneer who arrived in Champaign, Illinois as a cattle driver and transformed himself into the region's largest landowner and a banking titan.
So it goes through and it explains his life from this. One of the other examples there is a explainer video, which...
All right, let's jump right into this one. Today, we're looking at a pretty incredible story. It's all about how one single family...
If we jump ahead.
1841, he already owned 500 acres and basically transformed himself into the county's largest landowner. To give you a sense of the scale here, he once fed and marketed the heaviest 100 head of cattle anyone had ever seen in Chicago. The other cattlemen at the time thought it was just this astonishing feat.
Right, so it goes through history, creates a video. Again, the illustrations don't always have a lot to do with him. Like it's not actually showing pictures from history or from Champaign, which is a shame. It'd be cool if it really did. And so you have to take this with a grain of salt, but what it can do for you is really interesting. And then this infographic, so a graphic based on the history and the life of Benjamin Franklin Harris. Again, it's using only the references that we gave it. It generated this for me. It's not all, again, 100% correct, or some of it could be a little fudged, but pretty interesting what it can do there. And then a mind map. So I don't know if you've ever used a mind map before, but as you're doing research, you can see here, what if I wanted to dig in deeper on the business and career of Benjamin Franklin Harris, and then look at his banking legacy, and then, oh, there's a charter signed by friend Abraham Lincoln. If I click on that, it is now generating information about that specific and granular piece that I was looking for. And then the very last thing, a quiz. In order to test my history, my knowledge of Benjamin Franklin Harris, I was able to create this quiz. Let me retake the quiz. In what year did Benjamin Franklin Harris Sr. organize the First National Bank of Champaign? Well, I think that was in 1865. That is right. And then it provides this information. So it generated all of that for me, which can just be really fun, right? Just another way of engaging with your family history or that information that you're collecting. So let me switch back now to the slides. I'll show the QR code and officially end here. I'll open it for questions. I'm willing to stick around as long as we can. I don't know how long they'll let us stay, but I am willing to stick around even outside this room to answer questions. Feel free to use the QR code to download that there. You can also email me and I'll send it to you. You can come up and I'll give you a business card if you prefer that. I'd love to talk with you more about this, so don't hesitate to come up. And thank you all very much for coming here today.